You're listening to the Soju Sessions, episode 5, Growing Up with Eyes One, part 1 on the Soju Talk Nation podcast feed. This week, Mina and Max from the Nation join me for a 2-part Eyes One discussion. We talk about forming a bond with a group during similar formative years in life, and the place music has in each of their lives. In part 1, I talk to Mina about our shared Filipino heritage and the similar lens in which we see the world. We get into friendships, hopes for college once campuses open up again, and end on an uplifting look ahead for the Eyes One members. Coming up, Growing Up with Eyes One, Part 1 with Mina. Joining me on the Soju Sessions today is the Bias Wrecker podcast host of the Soju Talk Nation, the man who started the Dumpster Cast. We have Based Mina. Mina, welcome to the show.
Hello.
How are you doing today, Mina?
I'm doing great. How about you, Chrissy?
Not too bad. Staying pretty busy today. I recorded earlier before this with Koala, so it's just gonna keep the machine going and keep keeping all of the conversation and discussion just flowing through today.
You do a lot of podcasts these days.
I mean, it's kind of just a way to stay busy, just to keep talking to people and feel like I'm connected. Because as much as I love Discord and I love chatting with people through text, there's just something different about hearing a voice and having that immediate interaction with someone.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, I brought you on today because we have a couple interesting topics, but I do want to get, again, your origin story, because this is the first time you'll be on this show. And let's actually start with your first experiences with the Soju Talk Discord and the podcast itself. How'd you find it? And what was it like transitioning into a more social environment through Discord?
Ooh, okay. So it's a weird story. I don't think I've ever told anyone this with the podcast. It was during a trip to the Philippines. I think it was 2019. I was looking at random podcasts to download so I could listen on the airplane. So then I saw Soju Talk, and I think I could look at it real quick what episode it was. I think they were talking. No, it's not that episode. I don't know, I forgot an episode, but it was a really early episode that I listened to. And I'm like, these guys sound pretty cool. It's a podcast. I'll probably keep tabs on them for a bit. And then 2019 passed, didn't really listen to anything. And then COVID happened. And then I went back to old stuff that I used to listen to, and I'm like, what is this Soju Talk thing I used to listen to? So I listened to it again. I'm like, oh, these guys again. So then I listened to them for a bit. And I think it was around an episode where they, I think it was when they covered Oh My God by G-Idol. I think that was around the time I joined the server. And here I am now, here I am, in the server.
It feels like with the amount of time that we spent together just on the server, seeing each other's usernames, simping over our various favorites, Itzy being one of them, twice when did you come back. It does feel like we've known each other for a long time. And I'm just speaking from everyone that we interact with regularly, right? How
everyone kept saying, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
People kept saying that I've been here since the beginning of the server, and I'm like, no, I'm if anything, I'm one of the I've been here for almost a year. Everyone else I talked to has been here for almost way longer than me. But it feels longer.
It does feel longer. I do feel like a lot of people have been familiar with the show and have lurked on the server for longer than a year, but the pandemic has definitely amplified that.
Right.
And really put us all into a position where it's like, we need human interaction. How do we get it? Oh, Discord's a thing. I'm at home all day. I can't leave my house. Let me talk to strangers on the internet. And it turns out, luckily for us, the strangers on the internet that we've met have been pretty pleasant people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope to meet everyone at least like in my lifetime in like IRL. Hopefully.
Yeah. Like, I'm really looking
Like, that's an
forward
end
to
goal.
the world opening up again when, like, KCON happens.
Okay, God.
Yeah. At least, like, some semblance of getting people together, or at least an opportunity
Yeah.
to meet everyone. Um, and it's really interesting that everyone has kind of that origin story with the server, the podcast itself, and just like how that conversation has become a part of their life, a part of their everyday routine, and just a part of the way that they think about entertainment, the world, and socializing with other people. What is your origin story with K-pop, and how has that been part of your growing up, socializing, and getting to know friends over time?
Ooh. So first experiences with K-pop. This could honestly really trace back all the way back to like fifth or sixth grade. So when I was, gosh, how old was I? I don't know. I was like scrolling through my iPad, you know, like listening to music because back then I was really into like rap, whatever, like Lil Yachty, 21 Savage, whatever. And then I think one of my cousins came visited from the Philippines. He's all like, "Hey, have you heard of K-pop?" And I'm like, "The fuck?" I'm like, "Sorry, I cussed."
You're fine. Let it
And
out. You're fine here.
I was like, I listened to it. I'm like, "Bro, what is this? This is garbage." He's like, "Well, have you heard of Gundam Style?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "That's K-pop." I'm like, "Oh, so Korean music." Oh my, that's such a revolution for like me at the time, and I'm like, oh, I might listen to it. Not gonna lie. So then, um, I think I went home that day, I just searched up on YouTube, K-pop. First thing that comes up, Red Velvet Ice Cream Cake. So then I gave it a listen. I'm like, Red Velvet, pretty dope. So I listened to, because at the time they only had Ice Cream Cake and then Happiness. Those are their only two songs, basically. So then I just listened to Ice Cream Cake and Happiness that day, and I'm like, it's kind of banging. So, but yeah, but like as an Asian American, I was apparently late to the K-pop bandwagon in my community or in my neighborhood because like all my friends in the neighborhood were all like, "Oh, you finally got to like listen to Red Velvet. That group is so good." I'm like, "You knew about this?" It's like, "Yeah, for like almost months now." I'm like, "Oh, I guess I am behind." So then to catch up with them, I tried to listen to as many groups as possible so I could start a conversation with them. And yeah, and I accidentally ended up listening to my second group, AOA. I think it was gosh, I forgot the song. It's the music video where they were doing like lacrosse. Forgot the song. Then somehow then I listened to A Pink because I was trying to find a song by AOA called Like a Cat. And A Pink also has a song called I Like a Cat. So I listened to A Pink. Then I don't know how Twice ended there, and yeah, I don't. Everything became like was everything that I learned about K-pop like came off of accidents. Is how I summarize my origin story between K-pop.
And I do
Everything
feel
came out of accident.
And I do feel like that's very similar to just how we discover ourselves, right? And like our formative
Yeah,
years, how we learn about the world, the things around us, and media. Because as much as like we'd like to think media is like ever present, that we can just come across it whenever we want, and like that is our opinion and our experience of media. Someone had to have
yeah,
introduced you to something like at some point in your life. Like it's never
yeah,
like an on purpose. It's in front of your face and you understood it immediately. I think your example with Gangnam Style, like you knew that was a song, you knew who was Korean, but you never made that association with K-pop until someone introduced you to like the broader genre, the broader world of like how it was all produced and other artists very similar to it.
yeah.
I did want to ask you because like you did grow up with like hip hop music, like Western contemporary music. How big of a shift was that for you when you went from one style of music to another, and because, like you said, like there is that Asianness, that Asian identity aspect of it. How is
Yeah.
that an easier transition, even though the two genres of music are completely different?
Yeah, so I went to a school that like was really into like rap. Like every time a rap artist like came out with an album, they're all like, "Yo, let's listen to it like during like recess or like during our breaks," and we'll just like try and memorize the songs. So I'm like, "All right, let's do it." And I ended up like whatever, just learning a bunch of rap songs that I somehow I still somehow remember. Um, and then when K-pop came around, I was like, "Oh, this is different. How am I gonna memorize like lyrics that I don't know Korean?" So I really and like in the earlier days of me listening to K-pop, I would just listen to the rhythm, and I'm like, "Yeah, this has a good rhythm. I like this song." I think that's how I really approach songs today. Like if the rhythm is good, I really like the song. If the rhythm is just garbage, I'm just not gonna listen to it. Like people, like everyone, like because I'll give an example. Um, in the ISO one has a song called Beware, which is apparently a C to D tier song for the to the wizards in the server. And I'm like, dude, the beat goes hard. Like, I love this song. It should be A tier, but like they just disagree. I just like to put this on the record. They have bad opinions. My opinion is the best. Beware has to be it fits an A tier. But yeah, whatever.
I think that's interesting that you understand that like this immediate conflict, right? Of how
Mm-hmm.
music music in and of itself is universal. Like everyone connects with a rhythm, everyone connects with a beat, but there are still certain mindsets that are more rigid and not flexible to seeing and hearing things that are subjective. It's art.
Mm-hmm.
It's open to your interpretation. Yes, there are like aspects of something that you can say like are bad or unpleasant, but for the most part, if you
Yeah.
enjoy it personally, then it's enjoyable. It's good to you. And I do want to kind of tie this back into culture and who you are as a person. So you and I are both of Filipino heritages, and I think just learning that about you early, there was an innate like ease in conversation and wanting to like share certain aspects of culture that we both understood about each other. I mean, like I think I can remember certain things we talked about with like food, and like there was a question of the day, and like you, me, and Kami just like named off like a million like Filipino dishes.
Yeah. We just like nerded off on like, yo, below it garbage. No, this Filipino food. Now this is top tier. We started nerding off on that. I
Yeah,
remember. I
we
remember.
we just like took over like that conversation. It's like it was lechon and it was lumpia and it was just like all these familiar like family things.
Yeah,
And like in Filipino culture, family is very important.
it's true.
But I know that you've said in the past that you've had conflict with your family, that there is some rigidity to the way that the adults and older members of your family have thought about the broader world, and that there
Mhm.
is conservatism in your family, even though you are immigrants. How do
Yeah.
you reconcile that part of your identity with trying to expand yourself into more artistic expression, like K-pop, like
Well,
more liberal perspectives in certain things?
yeah. Well, like at the end of the day, they're my family. I love them. Like, it's like the deepest of my heart. But, like, there are some things that like we disagree on. But, like, they could be very like controversial, especially to like our family. Because like I remember like this doesn't really relate to K-pop, but I remember we were talking about like the shootings that occurred, like of God, I can't even remember their names, unfortunately. But like we were talking about like police reform, like gun laws and all that, and for some reason they decided like, oh, those people like in regards to African Americans, they said it in like such a derogatory word that like I took offense to it because I have a lot of friends who like face this discrimination, and I'm like, that's really, that's a bit offensive to like have your parents like say like derogatory stuff about African Americans, how they should be treated like that because like they're stubborn and all that. I don't know, it really pissed me off when that happened. But like, I forgive them. It's their opinion. I learned that through like different like life stuff. Like it's their opinion. You should respect it. You should tolerate it. Like at the end of the day, they're my parents. I love them. It's whatever. But like when it came to K-pop, like it was a bit different because they like when I go to the Philippines, the older like my older relatives usually stay to themselves. They talk about whatever's happening, like current events, whatever. I usually stay like I'm at that age where I'm like, am I part of this older like people or am I still with the younger people? So I decided to like stay with the younger people. We listen to music. They also stumble upon K-pop and we listen to it. We talk about it somehow and like they speak in broken English, but I can still understand them because somehow K-pop united us in a way. But then like their parents are like stop talking about the K-pop stuff. It's um and to summarize it, they had said, I know half of these artists are gay, homosexuals. They're like, I don't like homosexuals. And I'm like, well, that's fucked, really. So like I'm just gonna bear through it. Like we just agreed on like we just fight through it. Whatever their opinion doesn't matter. Like, we just be ourselves. That's how I faced it.
What's your family's immigrant story?
Um, my dad came from the Philippines to here in the 80s. Well, no. So, oh god, I'm losing track of time. Mid 70s. He stayed here for a bit, got legal citizenship here, and decided to bring my mom over as well as soon as he got citizenship. In the 90s. So they got married here. They stayed here in the 90s, married in 2000, moved back to the Philippines for a bit. I was born in the Philippines when I was 8 9 months. We moved back here to America, and now they run a family business of care homes for old people, elderlies.
So in Asian
And my dad,
culture,
yeah.
oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, just the Filipino culture of everyone should be a nurse is true in my family.
Yes,
Even my relatives,
for sure.
everyone's a nurse.
Yeah, definitely with like being a nurse, being something in healthcare, something stable, right? Because I think that
Yeah,
has always been like the entry point for immigrants, especially Filipino immigrants, to come to the States because
yeah,
there's always a need for nurses and there's always a need for inexpensive labor. So if you just combine
yeah,
those two factors, the fact that an immigrant Filipino worker will be more likely to require less in pay,
hmm,
of course, increases the need for our community and population in that field. And I think that
right,
goes a lot into this like Asian cultural attitude towards submissiveness and being submissive, where
yeah,
for us, we're leaving a country that is just not as successful, that will not put us
hmm,
into situations of prosperity,
right,
and with the hope of the American dream being that place. But then once we arrive to America, we're just so deathly afraid of our safety, being outed, and then being sent back home. So we kind of
yeah,
just put our heads down and try not to ruffle any feathers. Do you
yeah.
feel like these attitudes have, I guess, like influenced a lot of why your parents feel a certain type of way towards people who look different or people who are more expressive about either what's wrong in the world or just expressive about like their liberal feelings about the world?
Well, I think their like feelings of the world's actually changed during COVID because like they didn't really like obviously like before COVID when I was like, hey, I'm gonna go out with my friends, I'm gonna go eat real quick. Like they'll tell me like, oh, please be safe, please don't say anything offensive, whatever. I'm like, why would I say anything offensive in public, whatever. But like, I think now because like there are hate crimes towards Asian Americans like somehow on the increase lately, they are trying to like, I think it's just for our safety, just try and lay low, try not to show that like we are Asian somehow. I don't know how that works. But like they kept telling me, "Oh, how you?" It's like, "Oh, Mina, how are you supposed?" Well, obviously they said my real name. But like, how are you supposed to like blend in with the crowd here in our city or in our town? And I'm like, I'll just be myself. Like, if they want to hate me, they'll hate me, whatever. So like, yeah. But hopefully, like, thankfully, my neighborhood is like, it's it's what's it called? It's open to me, whatever. Like, I'll pass by them. I'll let them like they'll ask me, oh, what music do you want to play? And like, oh, I want to listen to some K-pop. They're like, yeah, sure, we could dance to it, whatever, sure. And like, hopefully, like, thankfully, my neighborhood is open to it. But like, as a neighborhood, as a town, as a whole, like me going outside of the neighborhood, it's kind of sketch because very, very conservative people in my area. Somehow, a lot of conservative people.
I feel like there's a cognitive dissonance with the way that the older generation sees blending
Mm.
into the country that you're immigrating to, right?
Yeah.
Especially Asians, Filipinos to America. It's like put your head down, blend in. Have you
Hmm.
seen the color of my skin? Have you seen the way my eyes slant? It's like I'm not white. Like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what do you want me to do? And
Yeah.
go
It's
ahead.
strange um because if we're talking about like physical features, like I think I read like an article on it, how Filipinos and Latinxes they look very similar. If you were to wear like a face mask, they look fairly similar, like in skin tone and like if you look at their eyes, there are some like Filipinos with slanted eyes, but they're like for me and some other of my relatives, we have like we look almost Hispanic. So sometimes someone will come up to me and speak Spanish, and I'm like, oh, sorry, no, I'm not Mexican, I'm not Hispanic. Sorry, I'm Filipino. They'll ask me, oh, what's your name? It's like, oh, my name is blank, and it's like it's a Hispanic name as well. So it's very odd. It gets kind of awkward sometimes, actually.
Yeah, and I think that's just part of living in a culture that's a melting pot of
Yeah.
many different heritages, backgrounds, and kind of pushing back against like the dominant culture of like white male Americans. Again,
Mhm.
not to diminish being white or male if you are that and you have more liberal feelings about how to include people. Of course, we want to be better people. Of course, we want to include everyone. However, there is an objective truth for the fact that if you are white and you are male, life is very different for you. And
Yeah.
these are not the questions that you're asking yourself or having to grow up with. So for us to live it every single day to the point where it's normalized, and then you step back and you realize this shit shouldn't be normal. It's like
Hmm.
people need to at least like be aware that a lot of the way that it's framed and structured that we interact with each other is from a point of view of a dominant culture. That's
Hmm.
not ours. That doesn't represent us.
Right.
And you're going to be going off into college, transferring to university for your university. I think
Hmm.
you're already there, but you can't go to the campus yet, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm currently taking online university classes from my university.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, once you get onto campus and you start to experience campus life, diversity of people and backgrounds, and people who come to your school on student visas, I think it'll do a lot. I mean, college in and of itself does a lot for expanding that experience, right? But
Yeah.
what do you feel like? What are your hopes? I guess like moving to college, getting a little bit of separation from your family, and finding a way to introduce K-pop into your life as a bridge to meet other people.
Well, I'm already like used to like international students because my high school admitted like quite a few international students. Almost, I would say like 25% of the school's population was from like from China, from South Korea, from Japan, from Mexico, some like different countries from around the world. So I think like I'm used to like being open and like to other people's opinions on like music and all that. Like if they don't like it, they don't like it. But like going into university, obviously it'll be like a bigger population. To put in perspective, my high school was 200 roughly, and the university I'm going to is almost triple, quadruple that. And I've never been in such like a big like campus before, so it's a bit nerve-wracking. But like if I meet friends, if I meet friends that listen to K-pop or like just listen to rap or whatever music, and they're open to whatever, it's fine. It's like if I meet friends, I'll meet friends. If not, I have friends on the Discord. And it's like it's just open. I'm just that's my mindset going to university. I'm first there to study, finish my 4 years of undergrad, and if I meet friends, I meet friends. That's my mindset.
Yeah, it's all about the experience, right? Like
Yeah.
the destination is the journey, is what my grad school teacher would always tell me. Meaning, the end point isn't necessarily what you're trying to accomplish at the end. It's everything that happened in between. And
Hmm.
it may seem like a long time from now, 4 years, but it'll go by fast. It'll go by faster than you
Yeah.
realize.
Yeah. I'm already done with. Or next week will be my last final for year one. So
Hey, there you go.
it's
And
going off
yeah, I
too
mean,
fast.
it's a weird time to like grow and learn about yourself when you're in a pandemic and you have to do everything remote and online, and you're not able to see real people. But hopefully, when the world opens up and you're able to be on campus, again, it'll be another transitional period in your life.
Hmm.
But I do have confidence in you specifically that you will take in all your experiences just from everything that I've known about you. And you'll take in the memories
Yeah.
moving into like adulthood and to the next phase of your life.
Yeah.
Which brings me to a group that you are very fond of, who
Oh
is
god.
transitioning.
Oh god.
They have spent the past, I would say, 3 to 4 years in the same circle of media group, however you want to describe it, from Produce 48 to them debuting as Eyes One, and now at the current phase, ending their time together. So let me just get your general thoughts and feelings. How does
God
the
damn
end of
it.
Eyes One? How do you feel about the end of Eyes One and its time together?
Um. Well, like historically, I what's it called? I follow. I basically followed every like Korean produce group. So when Produce, so season 2 came out, I'm like, oh hell yeah, I'm gonna binge the shit out of this season. So then that one thing, and I was a wannabe or 101. So I think their fan group was Wannable, I think, whatever. And yeah, when they disbanded, I found a fan cam of their final concert and them everyone saying goodbye. I was on a bus to school at 7 in the morning, started crying my eyes out, and I'm like, I was thinking in my mind, why do I do this? Like, I know they're gonna be around for only 2.5 years. Why do I stand these groups? And then I'm like, you know what? 101 would be my last group. Then Produce 48 came out. Like, no, not this again. So then then Wiz One, then became a Wiz One. Okay, they were still a thing when Produce X came out, and I followed that entire thing. Even if I was in the Philippines, I watched the entire season. I'm like, yes, two produce groups, and X One's gonna be for 5 years instead of 2.5. And then I cried when I realized X One was gonna disband like within like 3 months of their debut. I started crying, and I'm like, God damn it, what's gonna happen when Eyes One disbands? And I woke up this morning, ooh, BB release, whatever. And then I saw it. I'm like, oh, today's the day, huh? It's like, well, like somehow I'm like, okay, disband. I didn't really care. I didn't really care. It's been numb to me. It's been numb.
What is it about
Been numb.
forming relationships with the members as they go through the process that pulls you in? That gives you that emotional connection to their music, them as people, and then their journey up until the end of their journey. to the disbandment of the group?
I think it's just like the idea that like, because everyone likes a really good underdog story. It's like I created like relationships with these group based off like the people who were underdogs in their group. For like example, in X1, one of their members started off in the X group, which was the very bottom of the pyramid. Meaning, I think it was like the first few episodes, they couldn't enter the actual training facility. They were in like another training facility. And this one member worked his way up week by week by week and ended up debuting with the group. And like when I heard his name be called, I'm like, yes, that's my boy, that's my baby. And like, I don't even know this kid, dude. He's like my age. I don't even know him. Why am I like so hyped about him? It's like the idea that like this kid worked so hard for like the last few months to debut in a group is just like insane. It's like I want to be part of his journey. I want to see him grow as a person. It's like in those next 5 years, but we know what happened. Then for 48, my bias is Eugen, and like I just want to see like because like Starship at the time, I think the only group I knew out of that group was Monster X, and now I realize WJSN is also in that like label. And I'm like, all right, Starship, cool. I want to see them like grow like as a company. And then I realized Eugen's also my age, or is basically a year younger than me. I think that like the age thing is like what really like got me into like the group is like, oh, they're very relatable. They're basically like relatable, and like the things that they go through, like school, like early years of IZ*ONE, like she was still in school. I think she still is. Like that relationship because like we both share like the same age and like struggles of life basically.
I think they mentioned it on the main show in the past how when groups debut, they capture the audience of their peers, of fans who are the same age, because they essentially get to grow up with them, that they get to go through the formative years, mature, and have parallel journeys to how they experience music and grow up in the world. In this case, IZ*ONE had an expiration date. They had an end point. Have you ever experienced this similar, I guess, moment with groups that have disbanded, who weren't put together through a show, but had come to an end, whether that's a contract or something had happened to them, and they were kind of forced into disbandment?
Through like these survival shows, I think like because remember when like during that time period where Fromis had like nothing, like zero, nada, nothing, like nothing was going on. I was like at the brink of like, oh, they're gonna disband, but thankfully they didn't. They came back. But I think the last time I felt like a disband like really close to my heart, I think it was I think it was GOT7 actually, pretty recently. Cause like they were one of the first boy groups that actually got me into listening to K-pop boy groups. Like freshman year of high school, I listened to them constantly. I listened to every single EP that they had at the time. Jin Young was in a drama, I think. Yeah, he was. I forgot which drama it was. It's like I thought I was gonna like I saw them at KCON. I'm like, dude, I'm such an August. I'm so like this is great. Then they disbanded, but it was expected. Like I mean, I expected it because like their contracts were expiring. Everyone was basically on their own. I'm like, you know what? They're going on their own. Good for them. It's like, have fun in the future. I hope you succeed. You gotta respect their opinion. You gotta respect like their decisions as a whole.
What's on the horizon for you and following the IZ*ONE members?
Um, I think for me, I'll probably follow mostly One Young and Eugen. See what happens to them at Starship. They'll most likely, what's today? April. Yeah, it's like basically May. I think they'll make a group. They'll make a group at Starship by Jul. Not even July. Maybe like September. Maybe. I want to see them as a group. I want to see them do great. As for like the J line, I follow them pretty frequent. Like they're basically BIOS wreckers for me. I think it's Sakura is in Hybe, if I'm not mistaken.
And I guess like similarly to me, so I followed IOI through their inception. They had a very short run. I think it was like a year and a half, maybe even just a year. So when they disbanded, they all found their own groups, and it was really easy for me to get into whatever projects they were in next. I mean, till this day, I still follow IOI members, even if they're not in music, like if they're acting. I mean, Mina, Kyokyung, just Sejong for a little bit, with the unfortunate end to Gugudan. And I mean, I can understand kind of like the pain and frustration of like something so monumental and important to like this period in your life ending. But I think you, and the way that you described it, have come to terms with it. And honestly, like there is going to be a lot of opportunities for these members. They're all wildly popular and very talented. So
Yeah.
even if they're not doing music, I'm sure like they'll find projects that we can all like definitely follow.
Yeah, low key, like there are some people that I know that like they act like this disbandment, like a disbandment is like, oh my god, they're gonna die. I'm like, no, they're not gonna die. They're just gonna move on to like a next chapter. You could still support them. They just won't be part of this group. They'll just be part of a new thing. You could still cheer them on. They're not gonna die. It's not like this is their last day on Earth. Like, you could still support them. Like, why are you crying so much?
And like I'm actually like,
Like, I understand it.
yeah, and I'm really happy you said that, because I think there's often times when we as fans forget to zoom out and see the bigger picture, and like forget that yes, they are idols and we follow their careers, and I mean, with the word, we idolize them, but there are restraints and there's things that we have no control over. And sometimes we know about them well in advance, and sometimes we don't. Luckily with Eyes One, we knew they were going to end eventually. And it seems like you're taking it well. So I do want to like move on to closing thoughts and kind of keep things upbeat and positive, because yes, Eyes One is coming to an end, but I think you put it best in that like the members aren't going anywhere. They may not promote together, but they will all be successful some way or another. And I think that's truly like a positive note to take from like anything in K-pop, with K-pop being so cyclical and always changing. Let me just ask you like a final question. How has music been a positive in your life?
Positive. Well, it's just really distractions for me for like from stuff that's happening in my life. Because like I usually buy, like when I look for headphones, I usually look for like noise canceling headphones, or if I'm looking for a speaker, I usually look for like a loudspeaker, like a very loud speaker, just like disconnect. I like just to put myself in my own bubble, listen to my own music while I do my own work. I don't want distractions. I just want to chill out, listen, vibe, whatever. It's like, I think it's up to the point. I think I've said this before. I think it's come up to the point where like music has really like been a part of me, that like I've decided to make Replay by Shiny like my good luck charm, basically. Like before every exam, I'll listen to it at least once.
And that's really interesting that like music plays such an important part in your life in so many small ways. And I think that's probably also the reason why something like Eyes One, there's such a strong fan response to it, because we are so deeply connected and we do appreciate the place it has to pick us up when we're down, make light of a certain situation, act as a good luck charm, like you said. And I think you expressed your background very clearly as to why that relationship means so much to you. Yes, like there is the aspect of your identity that is Asian and Filipino and an immigrant, but there is also that foundational piece of family and familiarity and being there for people that you connect with. And yes, like idols are separate from us. We don't know them personally, but we can be respectful of their space and time, and we can appreciate and enjoy what time we have with them. So with that, do you have any closing thoughts for everyone? This was a great conversation. I'm really happy to have you on and really learn more about you. But, you have the floor if there's anything else you want to let everyone know about yourself.
Are there any new releases today other than the BB one? Today's April 28th, so BB just came out with a new album. That album is heat, really good. It's been on loop now since 8 in the morning when I woke up. Yeah, it's 2 p.m. right now. It's been on loop since then. Go ahead, listen to that. Can I do a plug?
Yeah, plug away.
Plug, yeah. Listen to the Dumpster Cast, your favorite C tier Soju Talk Nation podcast. Other than this Soju Sessions and the other different podcasts that we have going on, this is the Dumpster Cast is your one-way ticket to breaking your eardrums. Yeah.
Like I said at the beginning, it is the bias wrecker of community podcasts at Soju Talk. Like, you may say that you like the Soju Talk Nation podcast, but truly, your heart belongs to the Dumpster Cast.
That is true. You may stand the main cast of Doug, Warren, and Anita. No. Your bias wreckers are me, Bagel P.
Absolutely.
At the Dumpster Cast. That is us right there.
And with that, thank you again, Mina. I really appreciate this really deep conversation and just opening up about who you are, your history, and the sadness that is the end of Eyes One. But the way you turned it, it's really about perspective, and you're seeing things from a very positive point moving forward with that group and your favorite members.
Yep.
Right.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you again to Mina for joining me to discuss music, his Filipino American story, and Eyes One. I'm Crispy, and we'll see you on Soju Sessions Episode 6, Growing Up with Eyes One, Part 2.